Welcome to another bonus edition of Upon Further Review.
Upon further review,
And in this edition, we'll be talking about the New Orleans Saints at the Dallas Cowboys. And this Week 4 matchup will be on Sunday Night Football on September 28th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and you can catch that on your local NBC affiliates. So the Saints come into this game with a record of 1-2, and the Cowboys are 2-1. And who would have thunk it? Is most people had the New Orleans Saints going to the Super Bowl, and most of the experts preseason analysis and picks. Of course, the way things started out, they had that disappointing loss to Atlanta in overtime by a field goal. That game could have went either way. Then they went to Cleveland and lost by 2 points in another game that they could have won, and they lost. But they bounced back in Week 3 as they beat up on Minnesota in New Orleans, and now they travel to Dallas. And the Cowboys started off with a disappointing loss at home against the 49ers, as they were really looking horrendous. They did turn it on in the second half as they attempted a comeback, but it was too little too late. But then in Week 2, they went to Tennessee and they beat up on the Titans. And then they went to St. Louis in Week 3 and won an exciting game as they came from behind. And Romo actually made some history in that game as he passed Roger Staubach for the most comebacks for a Dallas Cowboy quarterback. And they won that game by a field goal. And that's fourth quarter comebacks as they were down in the fourth quarter. Of course, in the final at the end, they were up. Everybody, you can check the recap to see how exactly it went down, but I'm sure you already know. But again, though, Romo has been struggling, though. Even they won that game, he only had 217 yards. The week before, in the victory, 176 passing yards. Of course, in that loss to San Francisco, he almost had 300 with the 281 yards. But that was a loss. So, which Romo is going to show up on Sunday night against the Saints? Of course, we know which Drew Brees is going to show up, as Drew Brees is one of the more consistent quarterbacks in the NFL. Even though he's only thrown for 300 yards once so far this season, and that was in the Week 1 loss. But he's been protecting the ball pretty decent. 5 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. Of course, he cannot afford to make turnovers. The Dallas defense actually does cause some turnovers, and that was part of how they won that game against St. Louis last week. But let's look inside the numbers, and on the ground, both of these teams are actually in the top 10 in rushing attacks. The Cowboys are in the top 5. They're the number 3 rushing team. They have the third most rushing yards of any team in the NFL. DeMarco Murray has been tearing it up. He's been having a good season so far. He has 385 yards on the ground this season, and he has 3 runs for 20-plus yards, as well as 3 touchdowns. He also had a long of 44. So DeMarco Murray has been tearing it up for the Cowboys on the ground. The Saints, despite Mark Ingram getting injured, they're 6th in the league in rushing. So they pick up those yards one way or another on the ground, even without Ingram. With him or without him, he is a really good back and was having a really good year starting out. Of course, that injury banged him up, and Kyrie Robinson has been looking pretty good. He has pretty good average, and he's got pretty good yards when you consider his touches. And Pierre Thomas picks up yards on the ground as well, so they can pick up yards even though they are a pass-heavy team. They actually pass the ball a total of about 30 more times. They've thrown the ball 117 times versus 87 runs. So they are a pass-heavy team, but they're still 6th in the league in running. But then when it comes to the pass, the Saints are 5th in the league for passing yards, is they have a very prolific passing attack. And the Cowboys, on the other hand, have been struggling to pick up yards through the air, is they're 24th in the NFL in passing yards so far this season. So Romo has been struggling. Usually he struggles in December, but this year he's struggling in September. If we look inside the numbers for the defense, the Saints have the 10th rushing defense for yards allowed per game. The Cowboys have the 15th rushing defense in yards allowed per game. So they're pretty evenly matched there when it comes to how many yards they allow on the ground. They're not spectacular, but they're both decent against the run. But with how well both of their running games are, they shouldn't really have too much trouble running the ball against each other. And then we look at the pass, and I'll tell you, this game, when you look at their pass defenses, it shows you that this one should be a high-scoring affair, and this one should be just a gunslinging, freaking airing it out, Romo, Breeze, going for it. They're both going to get their attempts in, and they're both going to be tossing the ball. This really is who's going to come down with it. Will it be one of their receivers? Will it be one of the other team's secondary? These secondaries are pretty abysmal. The Cowboys are 21st in the NFL in passing yards allowed, and the Saints, despite having such a prolific passing attack, they're 29th in the league in passing yards allowed, and their defense is just bottom of the barrel. And that's where the Cowboys actually are going to be competitive in this game, is that they shouldn't have too much trouble moving the ball. Romo should be able to pick up 300 yards. They both should have 300 yards. Both should get into the end zone. They both have really good running attacks too. So expect a lot of offense and not much defense. But what's going to end up happening is it's going to come down to the turnovers in this game. That's going to be the key, is which team is going to get the ball, is going to get those turnovers. If we actually go inside the numbers, the Cowboys are 5th in the league in interceptions with 4 interceptions, whereas the Saints, they've been struggling when it comes to interceptions. Even are they? I don't even think they have 1 interception. Yeah, they don't even have 1 interception. So, not 1 interception. They're going to need to have a better turnout from their defense. They're going to have to cause some kind of turnovers. Of course, Tony Romo, he's turnover prone, as he's thrown 4 touchdowns and 4 picks. So, the Saints, if they're ever going to get a turnover, it would be against the Cowboys. I actually picked the Saints in this game, even though I could see the Cowboys potentially winning. I just really don't see the Saints falling to 1-3. I think that they even up their record at 2-2. The Cowboys ended up at 2-2. That to me just seems more likely. I think Drew Brees will will the Saints to a win, even despite their defense. I think the defense actually looks better against the Cowboys than they have so far this season, and they're going to have to play better for sure. Because if they play the way they've been playing, the Cowboys will win this game. And I fully expect this one to come down to the wire. I'm not going to be surprised if it's classic Romo coming down at the end, where the Cowboys are down by 1 possession. He throws a pick, maybe even his first pick of the game, the first pick for the Saints this season, and then it's classic Romo, and they lose. Of course, then again, this time of year, Romo is usually, this is when he does good, but he hasn't really so far. So maybe tonight, technically tomorrow night, he'll shine. Even though you're probably watching this on Sunday, but anyway, maybe he'll shine on Sunday night. We'll see. But that's what I think. I think the Saints win this game. I think it's going to be close. 1 possession, probably within a field goal, no more than a touchdown. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Very interested to hear everyone's opinions. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe, as we bring you recaps for every game, as well as upon further reviews for every game. We also have a weekly show, The Wedge. Make sure to check that out. Thank you very much